All right, so we are on chapter 6 of Lady Lollipop. The title of this chapter is You Always Want to Get Your Own Way. I wonder who this title is referring to. We have a spoiled character, and it sounds like when you get your own way, you can be spoiled. A duke, thought Johnny as he left the palace. Duke of what? Duke Skinner sounded a bit funny. Still, it would have been a good thing, Dukes don't live in stalls, do they? So I'd better get working hard on this training business. Not only training the pig, which I think will be fairly easy, but also training the princess, which I'm sure will be pretty difficult. Back in the stall, he sat down beside Lollipop and said to her, What do you think? Could I train that girl to be less selfish and spoiled? The pig gave her a yes grunt. But how shall I start? Said Johnny. At that very moment, in came Princess Penelope. Johnny stood up and said to the pig, Stand. And the pig stood up. The princess looked down around the floor of the stall. The straw seemed to be very clean, she said. Have you just mucked out? That means cleaned. No, miss, said Johnny. No need for that. You just watch. And he opened the door and called Lollipop out and said, Busy. The princess watched amazed as the pig trotted across the yard to the patch of grass and performed perfectly. That's brilliant, Johnny, the princess said, and when the pig came back, she said to her, Busy. The pig gave a deep, long, drawn-out grunt. No good saying that now, miss, said Johnny. She's okay. She's only just done it. Well, then sit, said the princess to the pig. Lollipop remained standing. Why won't she do what I tell her, said the princess. Penelope, angry. Stupid animal. The princess didn't notice, but Lollipop was watching her carefully. The pig put her head on one side as though she was listening to these words, and she fluttered her long white eyelashes. Johnny felt that if she had eyebrows, she would have had them raised in surprise. That moment he had an idea. Look, miss, he said. Lollipop isn't stupid. She just hasn't been trained to obey you, only me. But I may be able to train her to obey you too, if you want to do something for me in return. Like what? Well, to begin with, you could speak more politely to Lollipop, said Johnny. And to me, he thought. Animals are very sensitive to the tone of people's voices. Try talking more gently if you want her to obey you. He knelt down on the straw on the far side of Lollipop and began to rub behind her ears. Now, try telling her to sit again, miss, he said, and he tucked his head down behind the pigs. Then, the moment that the princess said sit in a more kindly voice, Johnny whispered the word into one of the pig's ears, and down she sat. She did it, cried Princess Penelope. I told her to do it, and she did it. What shall I tell her to do next, Johnny? Johnny Skinner stood up, brushed bits of straw off his knees. That's enough to begin with, miss, he said. It is not, cried the princess, stamping her foot. I want to make her do other things. Stand, Lollipop, stand. Will you do what I say? But the pig remained sitting, at the same time giving the no grunt in answer. Stand, said Johnny quietly, and she stood up. Just as quietly, he said it to the princess. You've got to learn to be more patient. If you want the pig to obey you, no good shouting at her and losing her temper. Your temper. Trouble with you is you always want to get your own way. This is the moment, he said to himself, if she acts now like the spoiled little madam she is, then I'm never going to be able to do anything with her, and she'll never mend her manners, and I'll never be a duke, what's more. Johnny stood, the pig at his side, waiting for the outburst. Opposite him, the princess stood with a face like thunder. Remember that description from earlier in the book, a face like thunder? She is very angry. Then, in the silence, Lollipop moved forward and came to stand before the princess, gazing up into her face with bright eyes. The princess, staring into those eyes, fringed with long white eyelashes and shining with intelligence, saw someone not so very different from herself looking back at her. At that moment, though she herself did not realize it, Princess Penelope grew up a little bit. She looked at Johnny Skinner, and Johnny smiled at her. All right, Johnny, she said. I'll try to be more patient with both of you. Good, said Johnny. That's good, miss. Isn't it, Lollipop?" And the pig gave that quick, high pitched grunt.